Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the innovation engine that powers Shopify. We're going to break down exactly how a highly specialized, honestly super simple retail idea morphed into this massive, decentralized infrastructure for global e-commerce.
The origin story here is literally a study in stark contrasts. Picture this. It's 2004, and founder Tobias Lutke just wants to sell snowboards online. He had this shop called Snow Devil. Simple enough, right? But then he had this massive light bulb moment. He realized that the software he engineered to actually run his store was way more valuable than the snowboards themselves. So he pivoted. Instead of selling physical goods, he started licensing out that underlying e-commerce software. And just like that, Shopify was born.
So let's look at part one, the conceptualization of the idea and the friction of early e-commerce.
To really get why this pivot was such a game changer, we have to travel back to the early 2000s. And man, e-commerce tools back then were just painfully restrictive. You had platforms like Yahoo Stores, which offered these really rigid frameworks where customization was virtually non-existent. Like, Luca found it frustratingly hard to do something as incredibly basic as changing the background color of his webpage. Imagine that. But that friction was actually the perfect catalyst. It basically forced him to build a proprietary solution so merchants could finally have absolute control over their own brand aesthetics.
And that right there birthed a foundational concept, decentralized e-commerce. This distinction is huge. Instead of a centralized, single-company marketplace, think Amazon, where the platform makes all the rules. Decentralized commerce puts the power back in the hands of the individual. Shopify's core mission essentially became arming the rebellion of independent sellers. They provided the autonomous infrastructure people needed to launch, control, and actually scale their own unique storefronts.
Moving right along to part two, technological integration. We're going from Ruby on Rails all the way to agentic commerce.
Okay, so how do you actually engineer something like this to scale? Well, Lutke turned to Ruby on Rails, and he paired it with a custom template language he whipped up called Liquid. Back in 2004, these were some seriously strategic architectural choices. They were the secret sauce that allowed for the super flexible, rapid deployment of custom storefronts. It gave early merchants exactly what they were desperately demanding and totally solved that rigidity problem we just talked about with the older platforms. And as you'd expect, this architecture scaled like crazy. So we start with Snow Devil in 2004, right? Then Shopify officially launches in 2006. Fast forward to 2009, and they make a critical structural move. They introduce an API in an app store. Then, in 2017, they drop Shoplay's one-click checkout to slash buyer friction. And that whole continuous two-decade methodology of solving scaling challenges brings us all the way to the 2026 announcement of the Universal Commerce Protocol.
Let's just pause to appreciate how successful that 2009 API integration actually was. Over 21,000. That's how many apps are sitting in the Shopify ecosystem right now. It's wild. It proves perfectly how Shopify crowdsourced innovation. They basically let independent programmers continuously expand the platform's capabilities miles beyond its original code.
Which brings us to their absolute newest evolution, the Universal Commerce Protocol, or UCP. Co-developed with Google in 2026, this open standard totally ushers in the era of what we call agentic commerce. Basically, it allows AI agents to seamlessly discover products and automate the entire checkout process for the consumer. But here is the absolutely crucial part. It makes sure that merchants still retain complete control over their checkout customizations. So the AI handles all the friction, but the merchant completely keeps the power.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. Will open standard AI agentic commerce ultimately outpace the traditional centralized marketplace model? Because as Shopify just keeps integrating advanced AI into this decentralized framework, it literally forces us to rethink the entire future hierarchy of digital retail. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining me for this analysis. Keep learning and keep questioning.